To continue from my video from last week, I wanted to discuss the avoidant attachment style because it's like a magnet for the people who are anxious. And so it's a crazy dynamic. We tend to always be attracted to the avoidant style if we are people who have an anxious attachment style. And I want to explore this attachment style in more detail. And I want to see what it is about them that makes us so want to chase them all the time. What is it about someone who's quite mysterious and pulls back and closes off to us that makes us want to explore that more? So if you haven't been to my page, welcome. I'm Hamasa. I look at personal development as well as mental and emotional well-being and just day-to-day issues. Please do subscribe to my page so that you're up to date with all my weekly content. The avoidant attachment style is something that I found I just couldn't wrap my head around, and I feel like over time and over some work and self-reflection, I've kind of, if anything, begin to show certain signs that I'm verging on the avoidant attachment style, which is not a good thing because it took me a long time to kind of get to a healthy stage and I've kind of gone past the scale. It's kind of the flip of the anxious attachment, and so that's like when they say opposites attract, I feel that that's what it is that people who have anxious attachment find so endearing about someone who has avoidant attachment. And an avoidant attachment style is someone whose emotional needs were just not met or validated when they were kids. So their parents were just not there for them emotionally, no support, and they learned from a very early age that they need to suppress emotion. They need to make sure that they keep it to themselves. They can't get too excited or upset because it will have repercussions. And if they ever did express any sort of emotions, they got told that they shouldn't. They shouldn't show these signs of emotions, which is what happens in most cultures of similar to mine, which is Afghanistan or Asian subcontinent, some of Middle East, Africa places, because a lot of men have somewhat avoidant attachment style tendencies, and that's because from a young age our men get told that emotions are weak, emotions are not for boys don't cry, and so they get really early on told that they need to suppress it and can't be emotional and can't express how they feel and what they're thinking, and if they're upset, and they can't express that. So when that happens, you grow up to have a more avoidant attachment style. So how does this then translate into your adulthood? What happens that it affects all your relationships, not just the ones that are with your partner. So it's so important for us to understand what we do and how we alienate people if we're someone who has avoidant attachment style. And we need to work on that because these are suppressed traumas and emotions that we were always told not to express. And so it's built up into this wall of seclusion. And what's the first sign is that you not only suppress your emotions, but you also fear emotional intimacy. So the fact that you ever have to be vulnerable, open up, get emotionally intimate with someone just scares you, and you freak out and you shut down. What happens if you're constantly scared of emotional intimacy to the quality of your relationships? You end up having very shallow on the surface relationships, even with your partner, because you not only don't let them in, but you don't really care to get deep with them, because if you're gonna inquire and find out and they let off their emotions at you, you're gonna at some point have to do the same. So you just overall tend to form and bond very weak, shallower relationships in comparison to what a healthy attachment style would be able to create. When you shy away from emotional intimacy, what ends up happening is that you have to become very self-sufficient because you never want to rely on other people or need help. So when you're that kind of independent, where you are just completely do not ever need or want anyone or turn to anyone, and then when you're in relationships, that ends up confusing your partner They're either they don't understand where they stand with you, or that they take it personal, or your behavior becomes very hurtful, and kind of it almost becomes like secretive, because you just keep everything to yourself. If you're going through something, you bottle it up and you deal with it and you don't ask for help. So of course, when you're in a relationship with someone that requires emotional intimacy, and emotional openness and vulnerability, then that could create a real wedge between you guys. Kind of avoidant attachment style is that you have extreme boundaries. I mean, I am all for boundaries, and boundaries are incredibly important to have healthy relationships. But if you're gonna draw such extreme boundaries that completely secludes you and isolates you, and you just don't you restrict yourself on how much time you spend with people. You restrict yourself in what you say. Even if the conversation flows naturally, you stop yourself. You don't want to share. All these things are on the unhealthy side of boundaries. They're extreme and they're not necessarily good for you. They are isolating you. So it's important for us to understand that what's okay and what's just me wanting some alone time, me time, away from everybody, and choosing that path all the time when it's not necessarily the healthy thing to do. If you're going to constantly lock yourself in the room and deal with everything and bottle it up and then come out in a mood, then that's not healthy for you. So when you have extreme boundaries, that could be also debilitating. So you need to be aware of that. Like I said, boundaries are great and they're healthy and you should have them, but make sure that they're not so rigid that he absolutely cuts you off from people that should be in your life and are there to help and support you. And finally, you have trust issues. Of course, that goes without saying. Someone who's avoidant attachment and obviously didn't get their emotions validated from a young age and have serious trust issues about opening up and making themselves vulnerable will affect how you are trusting people in the future and as an adult. So if you are someone who suffers from avoidant attachment personality or style, then you will of course have trust issues overall, just all the time on the defense, because your avoidant attachment style is your form of defense mechanism. And so you're better off keeping everybody at an arm's length and better be safe than sorry. And that kind of limits you into taking risks, doing things that are enjoyable, being open, really feeling emotions as a fulfilled, wholesome person, because we are emotional beings. We operate from a place of emotions. So if that's constantly suppressed, it's going to come out in other negative ways. So why do people with anxious attachment style find the avoidant attachment style so endearing? And this is something that I want to make a video on hopefully next week, so that we can look at it more thoroughly, where they balance each other out, and not to fall for that trap, because all it will do is feed into your insecurities, both of yours. So the anxious attachment style is going to confirm everything they fear, and the avoidant attachment style is also going to confirm everything they feel like happens if they do get emotionally intimate with anybody. So we need to look at the dynamic and make sure that we don't fall into these traps again. If you've enjoyed this video, please like and comment on it, subscribe to my page, share it with someone who may find it helpful, and I look forward to seeing you guys here again next week. Thank you so much for watching. Mwah.